Should the Baltimore Ravens sign Jarvis Landry? We talk about that and more next year on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And we return here with another episode of Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Ostreicher of Ravens Wire. Of course, we're here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making Locked On Ravens your first listen of the day. We're free and available on all platforms, including on YouTube. And today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by Bet Online. Bet Online, as we covered this season, with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. Bet Online, where the game starts. And we're back here. It is a Monday edition of the show. We're now 1 week removed, a little more than 1 week removed from the 2022 NFL Draft. Ravens, of course, with their 11-player, very impressive draft class, and they went through rookie minicamp over the weekend. And in the first segment, we'll talk a bit about what players and also John Harbaugh had to say during the rookie minicamp. A lot of nice sound bites and things about how they're excited to play with the team. Some stuff on Chuck Clark as well from John Harbaugh, so I'll talk about that in the first segment. But in the second segment, I do want to talk about Jarvis Landry. There have been some reports and rumors and rumblings about just if Jarvis Landry could be coming to Baltimore. Some interest levels expressed by the team potentially, and some potential more rumors about Landry not going back to Cleveland. So talking about all of that in the second segment. Then in the final segment, I do want to talk a bit about Marquise Brown and just his situation, maybe what led to it, the target situation in Baltimore, some numbers behind it. That'll be really fun. So I recommend you stay tuned for that for sure. So a ton to talk about today on Locked On Ravens. Before we do that, though, happy belated Mother's Day to all the mothers out there, especially to my own. I really don't know where I'd be without my mom and all the things that she has done for me and all the things she has taught me. I really wouldn't be the person I am today without her. So, Mom, if you're listening, thank you for everything. I love you. And also, if you hear this on YouTube in audio and video form, be sure to follow us, subscribe to our channel, like the video. It really does help out a ton in video form. Where our next goal here on YouTube is 2,000 subscribers. So if you're already subscribed, I really appreciate you. Thank you so much. But we've also built up this really great Ravens community here. We're about at 1,500 now. So I guess the mini goal before 2,000 is 1,500. So if you're thinking about subscribing, we put out daily Ravens content 5 days a week here on this channel. So if you want Ravens updates, analysis, news 5 days a week, be sure to subscribe. I greatly appreciate it. And also in audio form, again, it is the same show in both audio and video. So be sure to follow us, turn notifications on so you know when our content comes out. Also, be sure to follow me on Twitter at ChaosStriker34 and the Locked On Ravens account at Locked On Ravens. Let's dive into our content here now, starting off with what some players and John Harbaugh had to say during rookie minicamp. And we'll start off here with Tyler Beatty, who grew up around the area. Obviously, if you didn't know, him and I did go to the same high school when he was in the area. And he talked about how he played rec ball down the street from the Ravens facility. He went to an Ed Reed camp and got Reed's autograph from there, and just talked about how he also played lacrosse growing up and was eyeing a lacrosse scholarship from Loyola, and then moved to Memphis with his mom and ended up playing football there. And the rest is history. Went to Missouri and had a phenomenal college career. But really just was excited for the opportunity. It was really cool to hear him talk and just talk about his opportunity and how excited he was to play for the Ravens. So I think that, yeah, he's a player that could establish a role for himself pretty quickly, especially depending on the recoveries of J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards and how they go. You never know. Obviously, I want them both back healthy, and a lot of other people do too. But if one of them has to maybe sit out for a couple weeks to get completely healthy, I think Beatty could really have an established role early on in his rookie season. Next, talking about Jalen Armour-Davis, who also kind of talked about how he is excited for the opportunity, but said he's aware of the Alabama pipeline that the Ravens have, and said a lot of people compare his game to former Ravens cornerback now Anthony Averett, who also came from the University of Alabama. So the Ravens, they lose one Alabama corner, they bring in another one. The Ravens do love that Alabama pipeline. It just feels like Armour-Davis at that spot in the fourth round, 119. Really a steal, in my opinion. It feels like he's a player that, again, depending on the injuries, Marcus Peters, does he come back full strength week one? Hopefully, yeah. Marlon Humphrey, it feels like everything will be good there, but you never know. I think that Armour-Davis with the situation at cornerback, I'd say, outside of Humphrey and Peters, not a lot of veterans there. You have him and Marion Williams. I think that, yeah, there are a lot of options that could be had there, but I think Armour-Davis is one that is very talented and does have a lot of work to do in some areas, but I think that's the beauty of training camp, the beauty of the preseason and learning throughout his rookie season. So we'll see what ends up happening there. And for Marion Williams, he said that he also is known as Pepe, the nickname that actually came from his Spanish godmothers, and said that he played every position in the secondary in Houston and even played linebackers, that he can even play some linebackers. So Williams obviously projects more as a slot guy at the NFL level, but did play outside, did play safety, so he is very versatile. And look, if the Ravens found a Tavon Young replacement here in Marion Williams, I think that it's a really solid option for them. He's super tough, very competitive, good ball skills. There are a bunch of highlights of him just making these great plays on the ball. So I'm excited to see what he can do and hopefully be that Tavon Young replacement. I think it'd be really nice to see him be that, especially potentially in year one. He'll be competing with guys like Brandon Stevens and Darius Washington, it seems like there. And also Travis Jones, a player I'm super excited about, said that he actually became more consistent with his hands as a pass rusher at the Senior Bowl. I know that the Ravens have struggled with interior pass rush for many years now. It's been a while. And I think Jones can provide some interior pass rushing presence as a rookie. He can learn from Calais Campbell. He expressed excitement about that as well. And also said he'll be trying to chase down Lamar Jackson in practice a couple times. He said with a very big smile. So that was something that was really funny. And again, playing with Lamar Jackson, playing against Lamar Jackson in practice, it helps these guys get better. And it goes for both the offense and the defense, honestly, being able to practice against a player like that for sure. Also, during day 2 of rookie minicamp, you had John Harbaugh talking a bit about the undrafted wide receivers, saying that they want to be here. The Ravens also had Marcel Darius, the former first-round defensive tackle, number 3 overall pick, and also Geronimo Allison, former Packer wide receiver, in camp on a tryout basis. So interesting there. But in terms of Chuck Clark, John Harbaugh did say, I'm planning on Chuck being here. I love Chuck Clark. And so, yes, I also hopefully plan on Chuck Clark being in Baltimore, but you never know. There have been some rumblings and reports about how he's potentially unhappy, whether it is contractual or maybe positional wise, with the Ravens obviously bringing in a couple star talents at his position. I don't know what it is, but I would love to see 3 safety looks with Chuck Clark and Marcus Williams and Kyle Hamilton. I mean, I've been preaching the 3 safety look thing for a while. I had talked about Chuck Clark, Deshaun Elliott, and Trey Boston. That was my big 3. I'll gladly take this other big 3 the Ravens have right now, and I hope Clark can be a part of that. But again, the Ravens have shown a willingness to move off of players who don't want to be there. They want to move them to teams that benefit them, and they've been really good about that. So it goes back a couple years with that. And if Chuck Clark does want out, again, you can never fault a guy for wanting something better for himself. And this is a business for the teams. It's a business for the players too, right? They can make decisions this best for them. If Clark doesn't feel like it's in Baltimore, then that's his decision. But then getting into Kyle Hamilton. Kyle Hamilton actually did wear the speaker in his helmet during practices. And I know a lot's been made of that. I just think, look, you have an opportunity to get a rookie some experience at the NFL level with the green dot in his helmet. Hey, I'll take that. I don't think it means anything unless Chuck Clark is traded. I think Chuck Clark still has that position, so has the green dot in his helmet. But yeah, I think that getting Hamilton that experience, I'm completely okay with that. And also, Hamilton just he talked about how surreal it was being a Raven, and I think that stuff is really cool. Just seeing these rookies have their dreams be realized and kind of having it all hit them at different moments. It's like a lot of different stuff hits them at different moments, and I think for Hamilton, obviously being in the building, being in practice, I think it hit him there. So that was really cool, in my opinion. And then talking about Tyler Linderbaum and Daniel Falele, the Ravens' 2 offensive line selections, Linderbaum said that a lot of the stuff is just football is football, but there's a lot of verbiage just different. And obviously from college to the NFL, there is a lot of different stuff there. So hopefully he'll be able to pick that up. I wouldn't be shocked if the Ravens' first official depth chart has Patrick McCary as the starting center and Linderbaum number 2, and then Linderbaum kind of takes that over. I still think McCary's best in that super 6th role, but McCary's a veteran. He's not going to let that job out easy. It's a position that he plays decently well. I know people look to the Buffalo snap and, whatever. But I feel like for McCary, he is someone who the Ravens want to have a big role. I think that role is a super 6th offensive lineman because you just never know with injuries. I think that he's very talented. The Ravens gave him that extension for a reason. But I do think that I project Linderbaum in there as a starting center week 1. I mean, look, if I took a center at number 25, I'm starting in week 1 unless something crazy goes wrong, which I don't really expect happening. And then finally for Falele, he said that Lamar Jackson's a very dynamic player and blocking for him is going to be really fun. He's a magician out there. And it just seems like everyone who comes into Baltimore offensive line-wise just really likes the idea of blocking for Lamar Jackson. We heard it with, this will be an unpopular player choice, but Alejandro Villanueva said it. Morgan Moses talked about that. Obviously, the players who have been with Lamar Jackson for a while, like Ronnie Stanley, have talked about it as well. But it just feels like there's that air around him where it's like, yeah, I'm really excited. It's a different type of player to block for, and it's really exciting for these guys. So that's really cool. And he also said that he feels like 375 would be a good playing weight for him. I know his situation has been compared to that of Orlando Brown Jr. Obviously, Brown Jr. fell in the draft a lot later than people expected him to go. The Ravens scooped him up. Orlando Brown was in the 3rd round, and Falele was in the 4th round, but I still think that Falele probably won't start his rookie season unless there's just a really bad luck of injuries for the Ravens where, Morgan Moses goes down, Juwan James goes down. I think that's really the situation I see him playing. I think that the job will probably go to Morgan Moses, but he'll be able to learn under those guys. And I think that's really important for a player like Falele, who is a bit raw in some areas, to learn from veterans like Morgan Moses and Juwan James. So really great stuff from a lot of the Ravens rookies. So it was great to see them out there, running around in the Ravens uniform, seeing these guys in their new numbers and kind of old numbers for some Ravens players like Jimmy Smith and Brandon Williams, Pernell McPhee. So that was kind of a weird thing to see 22 being worn in 98 and obviously 90 when David Ojabo was out there. But I'm really excited for this Ravens rookie class. I think it has a potential to be a really, really, really good one. And we'll see how it all works out in training camp during the preseason, how these rookies perform. And obviously heading into 2022, I think a lot of these guys will have big roles on the team. We'll head into our first break here now, though. When we get back, we'll be diving into what the Ravens should sign Jarvis Landry. So be sure to stay tuned for that. Still a ton to talk about on Locked On Ravens. First, let me tell you a bit about BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your sports betting stats and info. And if you use a Denver Nuggets guy and the Nuggets are out of the playoffs, there are still a lot of things to bet on, including this year's basketball playoffs that is now in the 2nd round. You have Major League Baseball, and also the Kentucky Derby was back, and that was a really fun thing if you wanted to bet on that. So be sure to go to BetOnline as your continued source for all your sports wagering information from live betting, the playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today. Use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. We're back here, our second segment of Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher, your host, still here with you. And again, thank you for making Locked On Ravens your first listen today. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube, like this video if you're here in video form, and in audio form, follow us and turn notifications on as well. But let's now talk about Jarvis Landry and if the Ravens should sign him or not. And for me, if you've been following along with me, I am on team Jarvis Landry 100%. I think that Landry would be a phenomenal addition to the Ravens. Now, there, again, have been, over the weekend at least, there have been some reports and some rumblings about how the Ravens have reportedly expressed interest in Jarvis Landry after the draft. There have been other reports that say Jarvis Landry is unlikely to return to the Cleveland Browns, and also a little Twitter exchange between Landry and now Raven Juwan James, who's actually been a Raven for a while. I shouldn't say now Raven. He's been there for a while. But between Raven Juwan James and now Jarvis Landry, who there was a little, those two play together in Miami, and they had an exchange where pretty much Juwan James said, my brother, Jarvis Landry, and added Jarvis Landry, and then said at the bottom, he's like, oh, well, this is just wishful thinking and not anything. And so Juwan James clarified that. But then Jarvis Landry responded and, with some rocket ships and everything. And so people, they look into that stuff. It's kind of funny and everything. But I think this will just be a signing that will be amazing for the Ravens. Obviously, with Baltimore trading away Marquise Brown, the wide receiver position has become one of need for the Ravens, right? They have 2 third-year players and 2 second-year players as their established guys on this roster right now. I'm not saying those guys aren't talented. I really like Rashad Bateman. I really like Devin Duvernay, James Prochet, Tylan Wallace, all those guys. I think they're extremely talented, but I do think the Ravens need a veteran in that room. And there's something about veterans, especially in any position, but for wide receivers, they know how to sit down in a zone. They know how to work back to the quarterback when they're in trouble at the NFL level. They know certain cornerback matchups, certain team matchups, what certain coaches like to run. I'm not saying that players like Rashad Bateman and Devin Duvernay can't work back to Lamar Jackson when he's in trouble or sit down in his zone. I mean, they're receivers. They can do that stuff. But there is that veteran presence that I think is very important, especially in this room. Now, with the Ravens and their veteran receivers over the past couple of seasons, it's been a mixed bag. I mean, you can go back to a Steve Smith Sr. type signing that worked out really, really well, obviously. But then you have the Michael Crabtrees of the world, the Jeremy Macklins. Even if you want to throw Sammy Watkins in that category, you can. But there's a lot of potential with Jarvis Landry, in my opinion. Now, Landry is not 30 years old yet. He's about 29 and a half. He will turn 30 in November, so right around like late November, early December. But he's 5'11", 196 pounds, and he is very, very accomplished. He's played 8 years in the NFL. Through those 8 years, he has caught 688 passes for 7,598 yards, 37 receiving touchdowns, and also can be used in the backfield if you want him to on some of those trick plays. 40 rushes, 239 yards, 5 touchdowns there. Also has had his fair share throwing the football as well. Not a ton of passes. He's 6 for 9, 146 yards, and a touchdown there. There was that play, actually. What was it? Odafe Owe, I think. The Browns ran a trick play for Landry, and he's going to throw the ball. And then Odafe Owe crunched him when the ball came out, and I think it was a turnover. So you can use him in those situations. Landry can throw the football. So if Greg Roman wanted to open up that vault for Jarvis Landry, I would not be opposed. That would be really fun. But I think when looking at a player like Landry, he is super tough, a very competitive player, can really be a first down chain mover for this team, especially if Lamar Jackson's looking for a guy on third down. If you have options such as Mark Andrews, Rashad Bateman, and Jarvis Landry on third down, even if you throw Devin Duvernay out there, James Prochet out there, you have a running back out there like Tyler Beatty or J.K. Dobbins or Gus Edwards. That's so many options, plus the better Lamar Jackson's legs. And obviously, right, even if Landry isn't signed, he still will have plenty of options on third down. But I just think adding a proven player like Landry is just such a plus to this offense, a veteran player, and an offense as a whole that really doesn't have a lot of veterans on it. The running backs, super young with Dobbins, Edwards, Beatty, even if you want to throw in Hill. Tight ends, pretty young group overall. Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, Charlie Kohler, Nick Boyle, kind of a veteran at this point. Offensive line, kind of a young group. Ronnie Stanley's kind of a veteran at this point, right? Morgan Moses, a veteran, Jawan James, but then you have Tyler Linderbaum and Ben Cleveland, and Ben Powers, and Tyree Phillips. Kevin Zeitler, obviously a very grizzled veteran, right? He is probably the veteran of the offense, but it just feels like to me a veteran, not only in the wide receiver room, but on the offense in general, would go a very, very, very long way. And I think Lamar Jackson would enjoy throwing to him. Now, there is the beef between him and Marcus Peters, where the alleged spit incident happened a couple of years ago in a primetime game. And so, you'd hope that if Landry was signed, that would all be good. Now, not everybody likes every teammate, right? This is not a situation where 100% of players in the NFL like 100% of their teammates. It just does not work that way. So maybe the Ravens are like, look, guys, just, we're going to try to win a Super Bowl here. We think you both can do that. Let's just, let's do that now. Jarvis Landry made some pretty harsh comments about Marcus Peters after that game. So obviously stuff I think would have to be pretty squashed in order for this to work out. If it's not a fit, it's not a fit. But I think just on the field, it makes so much sense. Off the field, pending Marcus Peters stuff, right? It makes a lot of sense. I just feel like there's not really a ton of downside to it. Now, Jarvis Landry was on a 5-year, around $75 million contract with the Browns. So right around $15.1 million per season. I don't see him getting that type of deal with the Ravens or any team, honestly, in free agency. But the Ravens, if they can make this a 2 or 3 year deal, I think 1 year probably doesn't work out for them, because on a multi-year contract, you can push money down the line. If it's a 3-year deal, you can maybe make that a 2-year deal with a third year out. If it's a 2-year deal, maybe it's a 1-year deal with a second year out for the Ravens, right? Where you can kind of make it a backloaded deal with guarantees, incentives, signing bonus, and just make the contract work out cap-wise. The Ravens don't have the most cap in the world, so they would have to maybe move some money around. Maybe Sam Cook, that would be his departure. He can save around $2.1 million. But I do think that when looking at redundancy on the Ravens roster with Jarvis Landry, I mean, it's there. Jarvis Landry is not a big body receiver who can go up and get the football. The Ravens need a speed threat, and they need a big body receiver. They lost that speed threat in Marquise Brown. They don't really have that big body receiver. They never really have had it for the past couple of seasons. So Landry doesn't really fill either of those needs. You play Landry in the slot. I think that's where he thrives. But then you play James Prochet in the slot. You play Devin Duvernay in the slot. Rashad Bateman can play there. Tylan Wallace can play there. So who are you lining up on the outside? I think that even if Landry is signed, this wouldn't be a situation where, all right, another redshirt year for James Prochet or another redshirt year for Tylan Wallace. I think these guys would work together, and so you wouldn't have to redshirt anybody because, if this is a 5 receiver rotation, let's talk about what they have now versus what they could have. The 5 receiver rotation, I think I'm throwing Rashad Bateman, Devin Duvernay, James Prochet, Tylan Wallace, and then let's throw Benjamin Victor in there for now because I think that's their 5th best receiver at this point. So those 5 versus Jarvis Landry, Rashad Bateman, Devin Duvernay, James Prochet, Tylan Wallace. I'm taking the second pair. I'm taking the second group personally because I think it just adds to this offense. It really does. And you want to add, I think, the best weapons around Lamar Jackson that you can. Now, in terms of durability, Jarvis Landry is actually very durable. In his 8 seasons, he played the first 6 seasons of his career without missing a game. 16 games all the way down until 2020, where he then missed just 1 game in 2020. He played in 15. And then in 2021, he played in only 12 games, so missed a couple games due to injury last season. But overall, that's pretty durable, all things considered, right? When looking at the other players in the free agent market, like a Julio Jones or a Will Fuller or T.Y. Hilton, you have to kind of pencil in like, all right, they're going to miss probably 4 games, 6 games, 8 games of the season. And to me, those guys are all talented, and I wouldn't mind any of them coming to Baltimore, but it's almost like a Sammy Watkins situation where you have to like kind of pencil in and plan for these guys to miss a couple of games because that's just what happens. And to me, that talent's awesome that they have. But if they're not on the field, they can't showcase that talent. You have to have a player, in my opinion, at this point, who can stay on the field. I think that's Jarvis Landry. To me personally, I am taking talent at a position of need, right? Jarvis Landry to me is the best talent available at a position of need. Is he the best fit for the actual profile of a player they need? Maybe not, but I think he's too talented at this point to pass up. And that's why I'm all on board the Jarvis Landry train. He also has experience in the AFC North, and that's not the be-all, end-all, right? It's not like, oh, Jarvis Landry played in the AFC North, sign me up, that's it. No, there are other reasons why. I've explained a lot of them. I think Jarvis Landry would be a great fit in this offense. I think it's the right decision for the Ravens, in my opinion. I think Jarvis Landry, to me, is the number 1 target I'd take for this Ravens team at the wide receiver position. Again, wouldn't mind players like Julio Jones, T.Y. Hilton, a couple other guys, but I just think that you have to take into consideration their injury history and plus the other things that they've kind of dealt through throughout their careers, and the talent's there, but again, I want somebody who's going to be on the field, and I feel like Landry has the best option, the best chance to be on the field in 2022 for the Ravens. So if there's the opportunity, if the money's right, if it all works out, if the outfield stuff is all good with Marcus Peters and everything, I think the Ravens should sign Jarvis Landry. We'll head into our final break here on Locked On Ravens. When we get back, we'll be diving into the Marquise Brown situation, diving into some numbers behind it and the overall situation in general. So be sure to stay tuned for that. Still a ton to talk about on Locked On Ravens. But first, I do want to tell you a bit about Built Bar. And summer is coming. With summer, you're going to need some food for the go. And Built Bar, they're the perfect snacks to take with you on family vacation. You can throw them in your bags or in your kids' backpacks. And the best part about Built Bars is they're healthy and delicious, so no more sacrificing delicious foods for health. With Built Bar, you can actually have both. All you have to do is go to Built.com and order right now. And if you haven't tried the Built Bar Puffs yet, you're seriously missing out. Everybody's going crazy for them. They come in great flavors like banana cream pie and even churro. All Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate, and they contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Go to Built.com, get all your favorite flavors now, including banana cream pie, raspberry double chocolate, and so many more. They're all really, really delicious, including my favorite in mint brownie. So go to Built.com, use promo code LOCK15, get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at Built.com. We're back here. Our final segment of Locked On Ravens. Kevin Ostreicher, your host, still here with you again. Thank you for making Locked On Ravens your first listen of the day. Be sure to subscribe to our channel here on YouTube and follow us in audio form. And also make your second listen Locked On NFL. If you want to hear me talk for another 30 minutes as I hosted the Monday show over on Locked On NFL. So you can check that out by going to the Locked On NFL YouTube page or just typing in Locked On NFL wherever you get your podcast. We talked to 3 hosts from around the league, around our network, about the biggest news of the week. So now let's dive into the Marquise Brown situation. A situation that honestly shocked a lot of people when it first happened, right? Marquise Brown gets traded along with pick 100 to the Cardinals for pick 23. Something that personally, I was like, whoa, like this is out of nowhere. And then it comes out that he requested a trade. And then I'm like, okay, now it makes sense. And it's honestly probably best that both sides probably split. It just makes sense that way. You know, you don't want to have a situation where something happens in the middle of the year and there's a blow up, something happens and you just have to kind of deal with it then. I think the Ravens got incredible value for Brown as a player who played for 3 years in this offense and now goes to Arizona with a big contract looming. The Ravens get back the 23rd pick, turns into 25 and a fourth. They get Tyler Linderbaum out of that. So awesome. But a lot of the reasons that Brown has said he demanded a trade out and kind of said, hey, look, this just isn't for me, is about the offense. The offense wasn't for him. The scheme wasn't right. And also there was a quote that he said, and it kind of talks about the target situation a little bit. And he actually said, quote, it's not about the targets. It's about the type of targets. I've been in an offense where I've been getting all the attention. I'm excited to get some one-on-one matchups and spread the field out. And so this is an interesting quote. So about the type of targets. Well, in terms of getting one-on-one situations, like, yes, I think in Arizona, he will get more of those when DeAndre Hopkins is back on the field. But he said he's been in an offense where he's been getting all the attention. And maybe if he's talking about from a wide receiver perspective, I understand that. And I say, all right, yeah, sure. As a wide receiver one on the team, you were probably getting the most attention or all the attention, as he said, there. Like that's fair. Now, if he's talking in general, it's not true. It's not true whatsoever. There's this player on the Ravens. You might have heard of him once or twice. His name is Mark Andrews. He's a tight end. He's pretty good, just pretty good at his position and really good at what he does. And when looking at actual targets, since Marquise Brown said it's not about the targets, let's look there first. Marquise Brown had the 10th most targets in the entire league in 2021. Yet the 10th most in the entire NFL. Any player, any position, Marquise Brown had the 10th most targets in the league. Now, Mark Andrews had the 9th most targets in the league. Numbers-wise, it's 153 for Andrews, 146 for Marquise Brown. And it kind of correlates with the offense. Obviously, in 2021, the injury situation for Baltimore was not great, right? They had to throw the ball a lot more than I think they wanted to and anticipated before the year started. And looking at numbers-wise there, the Ravens in 2021 were the 9th most. They were the team that attempted the 9th most pass attempts in the league. So they had the 9th most pass attempts in the NFL. 2020 and 2019, the Ravens had the least amount. They were dead last in pass attempts for both 2019 and 2020. They were 32nd. So to me, an ideal situation in this offense would be if the Ravens hovered, probably still as a run first team for sure. I mean, that's what they do well. And don't come at me with, you don't think Lamar Jackson can throw? Because I absolutely do. That's not what I'm saying. But I just think that the Ravens, their bread and butter has been the run game. They have proven they can dominate and win games that way. But with a quarterback as talented as Lamar Jackson, with what he can do with his arm, the dimes that he throws, I think that it's best to utilize that and keep defenses continually guessing as to what you can do with that offense. So hovering right around 20th in pass attempts, right? 18, 22, like around that area, maybe 16 or 24. I think that would be a good area for them to be in. So it's not completely, we're running the ball 40, 45 times a game, and all of a sudden teams start to stack the box. And what can you do? Well, there's an advantage to that, especially with the weapons Ravens now have. You can play action off of that. You can do a lot of different things. But I think with this offense healthy, there is so much potential. And with Marquise Brown on this offense, there would have been so much potential where you could have it hover around 16, 18 in terms of the Ravens being there in terms of pass attempts for the entire year, really. Where it's like, all right, if the Ravens are right in the middle of the pack in terms of pass attempts, I think that's an offense Marquise Brown probably wants to be in, but he's also saying, well, all the attention's been on him and everything like that. Well, in Arizona right now, DeAndre Hopkins is suspended for the first 6 games. Marquise Brown, in my personal opinion, and I've said this for a while, it goes back a while, in my personal best case situation offense, Marquise Brown is a top-end wide receiver 2, like a top 2 wide receiver 2 in an offense. I think he's a very good player. I don't want to make this sound like I think he's like this terrible player. I think he's a very good, very talented player. But what you have here is a situation where in this Arizona offense, you have Marquise Brown as that top end wide receiver 2, right? That's the situation he was going into. But now with Hopkins out of the fold, who are you trying to shut down in this Arizona pass game if you're an opponent? It's Marquise Brown. That offense has AJ Green, Rondale Moore, right? As Zach Ertz, James Conner. I mean, I'm looking to shut down Marquise Brown for those first 6 games. And obviously I know that's not the be all end all, like Hopkins will come back and everything, but I don't know. I feel like the quality of the targets were still there. I understand he was getting a lot of attention because outside of him, Rashad Bateman was still a rookie trying to work his way into the league. Still did a ton of great things, but I think for a lot of the games, Mark Andrews went on that tear and teams started to try to shut him down. Now, Marquise Brown was seeing the number one cornerback on a lot of teams, right? That was something that was happening a lot. But I don't think him saying that, oh yeah, well, I was getting all the attention. If that is directed at every player on the Ravens, it's not true. If it's directed just at the wide receivers on the Ravens, I understand it a little bit more. So, I think this offense could have been very successful with Marquise Brown in 2022. It just felt like this was building for a while. And maybe the whole thing was he was worried about it going back to 2019 and 2020 with the pass attempts being dead last because of everybody coming back healthy. And once J.K. Dobbins gets back and once Gus Edwards gets back and once Ronnie Stanley gets back, maybe it was just a, you know what? We were ninth in pass attempts in 2021, but that's not where we're going to be in 2022. Maybe that's what he was saying to himself, where the Ravens as a team will go back to more run heavy, which I think, I think they should do that. But, at the end of the day, there is a lot that this team could have accomplished with Marquise Brown on it. Now, he's departed, though. He's not in Baltimore anymore. The Ravens have moved on. Brown has moved on. It's a different situation now. And maybe with Brown, the Ravens would have hovered more around that 20th in pass attempts around the league, 18th in pass attempts throughout the league. But now with just Bateman and Duvernay and Prochet and Wallace, again, not saying they're not good players, I think they are, but maybe that inexperience makes the Ravens lean on the run game a bit more. And I'm going to talk about it here now today, as if the Ravens haven't signed anybody, because at this point they have not signed anybody. So if Jarvis Landry is brought in or Julio Jones is brought in, maybe it's a different story where, hey, there's a veteran, we have another target for Lamar Jackson. Maybe that goes back up to there for the Ravens, and maybe that's what they're saying to themselves, where it's, oh yeah, we have another target for Lamar Jackson. We're able to now shift our offense to, of course, still run heavy, but more of a, all right, we don't have to run the ball quite as much. So if that's what they're saying to themselves, I think that's a good situation for them to be in. But for now, again, the Ravens and Marquise Brown have moved on. That's it. Brown has made it clear why. Obviously, the offense just wasn't a fit for him. And the offense isn't a fit for every wide receiver, right? Is the Ravens offense the best fit for every wide receiver? No, it's not. And John Harbaugh has said that he's not going to beg any wide receiver to play in Baltimore. If they don't want to come, they'll be more than happy to line up against them on Sundays. That is something he said. So for Marquise Brown, he didn't want to be in the offense, and that's that. The Ravens didn't want to, try to work with that. And I think, again, it was best for the Ravens to move on, and best for Brown himself to move on if that was a situation that was kind of happening. So I still have confidence in the Ravens offense. Obviously, I think they still should bring in a veteran wide receiver. We talked about Jarvis Landry, but for now, they're going to roll with their young guys, and we'll see what ends up happening with. That's all I have for you today here on Locked On Ravens. Thank you so much for tuning in. When we get back here tomorrow, we'll be diving into more Ravens talk, of course, so be sure to stay tuned for that, and I will see you tomorrow.